Okay, I'm out at work. It's middle of the night, and I've never done a video like this. But I just read the news about the police shooting in Dallas. First of all, my thoughts are with those families, the Dallas Police Department, and everyone else affected or involved in the shooting. It's a sad thing. People think this is a race issue or a hate issue. But from an outside perspective looking in, I live in an area that's probably less than 10% African American, and but I grew up in an area that was over 80% African American, and so I've seen both ends of the spectrum. Where I live now, racism is not an issue. Where I lived before, racism was. But I don't think that's why these shootings are happening. The shooting in Louisiana and the shooting in Minnesota, both, I believe that those were just incidents where the police officers may or may not have overreached and used too much force, excessive force. The St. Paul shooting, the Minnesota shooting, I've watched the video, the so-called live stream from the victim's girlfriend several times, and my honest impression is that maybe there's more to it than we know. Of course, the media is only going to let us know that he was innocent and a legal gun owner and got shot by a police officer, and they're going to try to make it a race issue immediately. If it were a race issue, I think we would all feel that way, or feel that sentiment in the girlfriend's statements. However, that's one of the things the girlfriend says, is that the cop was Asian. She points out to say he's Chinese, which Chinese are not Asian. And last time I checked, there wasn't a race war between Chinese people or Asian people and African Americans, or people of African American descent. So I'm finding it hard pressed to believe that was a race motivated incident. And I'm still not fully convinced that it wasn't completely the officer's fault either. The second shooting I've read about today was the New Orleans incident. I heard a lot of people on the public radio station, a lot of people they interviewed, talking about how his past, the fella that got shot, his past history shouldn't have mattered. It didn't matter that he had had a previous gun conviction, and that he was just out of prison. But I look at it like this, and if you speed and you get a ticket, and then the next time you speed and you get a ticket, at some point the judge has got to say, hey, this isn't okay. Obviously, giving you a ticket's not enough. I'm not saying that they should have shot the guy. That was going to teach him a lesson about owning a gun. I'm just saying that if in the past he'd had a unlawful possession of a firearm charge and had gone to prison for it, then they would have been more likely to think he had a firearm on him at the time. So when the report came in that he was armed and brandishing a weapon, they had every reason to go in feeling like assuming that he had one for their safety. Can you imagine an officer going into an active shooter situation, thinking that the active shooter was not a shooter. I mean, it would just be complete and utter chaos. So I'll bring that full circle back to the Dallas shooting that happened this evening, or this late afternoon, evening. So there was a peaceful protest going on about those two shootings, and while I disagree with the fact that those shootings were race motivated, I disagree with the fact that people should be protesting about it. I believe that there are better ways to handle situations like that. You need to be grieving. You don't need to be complaining that someone got killed. Mourn their loss, mourn your loss, but do not go out and say, well, it's the government's fault, they don't protect African Americans, or they don't control guns well enough. And because in neither of those situations would stricter gun control or special protections over African Americans have made a difference. It's just probably not going to happen. Gun control wouldn't have taken the weapons out of those law enforcement officers' hands, and it certainly wouldn't have put those two African American males in different situations. So, anyways, back to what I was saying. So they're protesting in Dallas over this, and two someones, it seems like, opened fire on the crowd or on the area, and ended up fatally shooting 4 police officers and wounding 11 more. My first impression was one more of a conspiratorial nature. I thought, well, that sounds odd. I mean, what are the odds that someone's going to have a successful sniper attack in one of the most heavily armed states in the country? I don't see it going down very well. However, the more that I have read about it and whatnot, I guess the one thing I take away from it is that people think that the answer to stopping police brutality or racism is hatred. Let me be the first to say that in my life, every experience that I've encountered where I've used violence or anger to be the means to an end, to solve a problem, when I've done that, generally whomever I had the problem with or whatever problem I was solving had some lingering effects afterwards. Generally backlash, if it was a person, or damaged relationships. And I think that's the big deal here is these guys, they thought that they were going to make a point or prove a point by shooting police officers, when the fact is you shoot police officers so that police officers will quit being so aggressive against African Americans. And yet when you do that heightens their sense of alertness. They start to become more aware of everything. Young officers are going to become wary that they're going to get shot. They're going to be nervous. They're going to make more mistakes, probably draw more weapons, causing more harm to more people. I do not agree that police officers are infallible, and that they're going to be able to go through a situation like this and come out smelling like a rose. It's going to mess with some of them mentally. Some of the guys that got shot at tonight are going to have some issues to overcome in the future. Obviously some of them have passed away, and they didn't overcome the issues. I mean, that sounds morbidly awful. That's just morbid. I'm sorry about that, but seriously, on a serious note, the fact of the matter is, we've got 4 dead officers and an entire community, probably the entire state, if not the United States, of full of police officers and police departments that are saying, be cautious, be wary, do not let your guard down. Well, when you're anxious and waiting for something to happen, you're more likely to cause it to happen. And so I don't know. I just, once again, I want to say, my thoughts are out there with those families, with everyone affected. I really hope that the people of this country, this nation, can come to some understanding and understand one thing, and that is that it's not about race. It's not about your color. I don't, black, white, brown, blue, green, orange, chartreuse, whatever. I don't care if you got polka dots. I disagree with the notion that it's racism. That's the big issue. That's the big driver behind all of these incidents. And I hope truly that people can understand that and see that, and maybe that'll open some minds and prevent some of these situations from happening, because people will be less likely to jump to conclusions and less likely to cause harm while trying to prevent it for their own people. But anyways, good night, everyone, and hopefully nothing happens to stir another rant anytime soon.